What's up, YouTube? I'm back ranking the boys characters. The last time I did this was at the end of season 2. We've had 2 more seasons since then. We got a spin-off called Gen V. A lot has changed. We got a lot of new characters. We've had a lot more fights. So this is definitely the appropriate time to update the list. Let me set some ground rules first. This list is not about potential. For example, we all know that Ryan has the potential to be the strongest Supe. I do not care. This list is about how strong the characters currently are, which as of the recording of this video is at the end of season 4. This list is primarily combat based, meaning I'm not really looking at who has the best or the most powers. Obviously those things are going to play a role, but what I'm really looking at is who would win in a fight basically. No prep time. Sure, Sister Sage, if given enough time to prepare, could come out victorious against anyone, but that's not what this list is about. This is about character versus character. Who would hypothetically win in a spontaneous fight? No luck. For example, when Andre was able to stalemate with Sam because there happened to be a taser nearby, or when Queen Maeve happened to fall next to a metal rod she was able to use against Homelander, these lucky situations will not be considered. Unless a character is consistently shown to carry weapons like Black Noir, they will not have them in these hypotheticals. Relationships will also be ignored. Obviously, Huey and Starlight wouldn't go all out against each other. We don't care about that. In this list, everybody is trying to take everybody else's head off. And lastly, if a character got a big power up near the end of the season, such as Starlight being able to fly the way she did, or Emma being able to shrink without throwing up, these powers will not be taken into consideration simply because we just don't know the extent of their new abilities. This is also why Tentacle Butcher will not be on this list, and also unfortunately Cindy, who even after 2 more seasons, we still don't really know anything about. Here's the list I made almost 3 years ago. If you want to hear my reasoning behind my rankings, I'll have the video linked in the description. Before I add any new characters, I have to update the list, starting with Queen Maeve. 3 years ago, her best feats were jumping Stormfront and feeding Black Noir and Almond Joy. However, that changed in season 3 when we saw her take on the Homelander, and did pretty damn good. Because of that, I'm putting her right next to A-Train. Next person I have to update is the Deep, who clearly got a buff in season 4, and I'm going to be putting him right over Kimiko. Speaking of Kimiko, she now goes under Starlight. I'm also going to be getting rid of all the characters in C and D tier because I need the space. Again, if you want to hear me speak about those characters, the video will be linked in the description. Next thing I have to do is move everyone down a tier except Homelander. He made it pretty apparent in season 3 that he's in a tier of his own. Stormfront, Starlight, and Kimiko get moved out an extra tier primarily because of how Kimiko got nerfed. I'll be going more in depth into the placement of all these characters later in the video. But these are all the changes I had to make. Let's get into the actual rankings now, starting from bottom to top. At the very bottom, I have Sister Sage. Pretty self-explanatory. She doesn't have any kind of super strength or super durability. Her superpower is that she's the smartest person on the planet, which I interpret as she knows everything and can learn anything with little effort. There's definitely more to her powers though, as she's able to make observations about Homelander that simply wouldn't be possible with normal human senses. She was able to look at Homelander's hands that could tell that they were extra clean. She was also able to tell that he had been dyeing his hair, so she definitely has some kind of supervision or maybe super smell, as these observations are more akin to something that Tech Knight would be able to do. Her brain also has the ability to regenerate itself, albeit very slowly compared to somebody like Kimiko. When her brain is injured, she's basically mentally impaired for hours. Now you could say that since Sister Sage has the ability to learn anything she wants, she could be an expert at hand-to-hand combat. However, even if you give her that, she simply does not have the strength to do anything to the people on this list. Except maybe the next person on this list, who is Tech Knight. Tech Knight has superhuman senses. He can hear people's heartbeats, he can smell adrenaline, he can see beads of sweat and people's pupils dilate from across the room. This, coupled with his detective skills, basically make him a walking lie detector, and that's cool and all, but he doesn't really have much strength and durability, and plus he can't even fly. Kimiko was easily able to knock him out, and later his butler, who was a regular human, was able to choke him out. I got him over Sage though because he is at least implied to have some level of super strength. When he was interrogating Kate and she started to take her glove off, he threatened to take her hand off.
It kills me that I missed it.
Take that glove off, I take your hand off.
I'm sorry.
Great foreshadowing, by the way. Was he bluffing? Possibly, but it's better than nothing. A lot of people doubt that he had super strength because he was able to be restrained by chains, but people have to keep in mind plenty of Supes with super strength have been held by chains before, including Kimiko and Starlight. At this point, it's pretty safe to assume that the boys' universe has some kind of specially strong metal that is able to hold Supes. And you already know Tech Knight, being the freak that he is, would invest in such metal so that he could get his freak on. Next on the list is Firecracker, who was able to go toe-to-toe with Kimiko. Oh my goodness, that doesn't even sound right. They nerfed Kimiko so hard in this season. There is absolutely no reason Kimiko should be going toe-to-toe with anyone that can get knocked out by Butcher, but I'll get more into that later. As I was saying, Firecracker has super strength and some sort of durability. She also has the ability to make a spark come out of her hand, which is pretty irrelevant unless you're trying to start a campfire or something. Her weaknesses include Starlight and underage little boys. Anyways, the strength she showed against Kimiko should be enough to take care of Tech Knight and Sage, but that's about it. That's okay though, because we all know her true power is selling purpose. To consenting adults, of course. Next up is Gunpowder, the only person in this tier that isn't freaky as hell. Gunpowder has superhuman accuracy, and it really is super. He was able to bounce a bullet off of several different surfaces and tag Butcher, who was across the parking lot. Once that happened, Butcher said, hell nah. Give me the Temp V, this is some bull. It's unclear if he has any kind of super strength or durability, as the only person we see him fight is Temp V Butcher, who is a high level supe. But judging by the fact that his bullets knocked back Butcher more than his punches did, if he does have super strength, it's probably not much. And unfortunately for Gunpowder, most of the people in this list are bulletproof, so this is about as high as I can put him. Next up is Lamplighter, who funny enough is not bulletproof. Now don't get me wrong, I actually believe that Gunpowder would beat Lamplighter more often than not, as he has a quicker draw and more range. However, the reason I have Lamplighter over Gunpowder is because his fire ability gives him a far better chance of beating the supes that are bulletproof, who again is basically everyone. Finishing off the E tier is Emma, who has the ability to get really small and really big. This is a really good power to have. Unfortunately, she cannot control it yet. In order to get small, she has to make herself throw up until she gets the size that she wants to be. And in order to get big, she has to eat family portion sizes of food. So she wouldn't be able to use these powers in the middle of a fight. However, even without these abilities, she's still a pretty formidable opponent, as she still has super strength. When she's the size of a bug, she's strong enough to crawl through a man's head. And when she's huge, she's able to hold down Sam, who is a high tier supe, with ease. So it's safe to assume that when she's her regular size, she still has great strength. Definitely enough to give the other supes in this tier major problems. They gave us a sneak peek at the possibility that Emma could get small without making herself throw up. If this also means that she could get big without eating food, expect Emma to make a great leap on this list. But as of now, this is as high as I can put her. Moving on to D tier, starting off with the little demon child Zoe. I was seriously considering putting her over Ryan because of how evil she is. Don't get me wrong, Ryan's a little weirdo too, but Zoe is genuinely bloodthirsty. What's going on? Wasn't she a regular little kid at first? But anyway, Zoe's power is she has 4 tentacle things. I don't even know how to describe these things that come out of her mouth, but you guys should see a picture of them on the screen. These things are pretty strong though, as they're easily able to take off Kimiko's arm, and she also has a pretty good healing factor, as we see her get shot multiple times and it's like nothing to her. However, this also makes it very doubtful that she has any kind of super durability, as the bullets pass through her as they would a regular human. Kimiko also doesn't have any special kind of durability, so just because Zoe was able to take off her arm doesn't mean that she will be able to do the same to the supes I have above her. On top of that, she hasn't shown much signs of having any kind of super strength either, so this is as high up as I can put her. Next up, I got Ryan. Remember people, this list is not about potential, it's about how strong the characters are right now, and Ryan simply is not that powerful yet. Ryan has super strength, laser vision, basically all the powers that Homelander has, except he can't control them. Like seriously, bro's taken out like 3 people accidentally. But what's seriously keeping him down on this list is his lack of durability. In season 2, he was knocked out by gravity, and in season 3, Soldier Boy was able to take him out just with 1 hit. I already know what people are going to say, but that Soldier Boy, he's really strong. Listen, Mindstorm took a similar hit and he was alright. Ryan and Zoe just simply don't have the durability to be higher on this list. All the people above them on this list have the capability to generate the force required to knock them out or even end them, including the person next on this list, who is Kenji. Kenji, better known as Kimiko's brother, has telekinetic powers, and that's really it. He also has some sort of durability, as he took being thrown through a wall by Stormfront pretty well. He has no super strength, as Kimiko easily overpowers him, and later he is restrained by duct tape. Duct tape! However, how powerful his telekinetic powers are easily make up for this. He's easily able to knock Kimiko back with his powers, and he's even able to send her flying through a brick wall. Keep in mind, this is his sister, who he probably doesn't want to hurt that bad. Later, against Homelander, he completely took him out of the fight by dropping a bus on him. His lack of strength and durability are what really hurt him though. If he's not able to take out his opponent with a big hit and they get close, it's over. Speaking of durability though, next up is one of the most durable characters in the show, Translucent. Translucent has the ability to completely turn invisible, and coupled with that, he also becomes invulnerable. Even Frenchie couldn't figure out how to penetrate his skin. Keep in mind, Frenchie was easily able to build a machine that could penetrate Starlight's skin, and Starlight is also insanely durable. We haven't even seen her bleed during combat. That just goes to show you how durable Translucent really was. However, despite being insanely durable, he doesn't have much super strength, as it actually took him a while to gain the upper hand against Butcher, and later he is unable to break out of the trunk of a car. Now that's not as bad as being restrained by duct tape, but you're going to need more strength than that to do damage to the Supes I have above him on this list, who if they get their hands on him could easily knock him out or choke him out. Remember, having durable skin does not negate those things from happening. We even see his son get knocked out by Marie, and we have seen several Supes with insanely durable skin get choked out. Next up is Blue Hawk. We don't really see much of his powers in the show, but he basically just has super strength and super durability. He's easily able to throw people across the room, and he's also bulletproof. People doubt his super strength and durability because of how easily A-Train demolished him, but people have to keep in mind, that's A-Train. That's a completely different level of Supe. He's doing the exact same thing to every other Supe in this tier. Next up is Ezekiel, who has the ability to stretch his body. The limits are unknown as we barely see much of him in the show, but he also has super strength as he's easily able to overpower Butcher, and he's able to send Frenchie flying out of an RV, knocking him out, which in my opinion looked more impressive than what Blue Hawk did. Finishing off the D tier is Crimson Countess, another Supe we really don't see much of. We don't know anything about her durability. She does have some super strength that she's able to escape from Kimiko by kicking off a wall. Keep in mind though, this is when Kimiko was going through a crisis and wanted to escape her violent lifestyle. She also actually liked Crimson Countess. Damn, the more I think about it, maybe she should be under Blue Hawk. But what I think gives her the edge is her fireball ability, which easily destroys humans. Unfortunately, we don't see her use this ability against another Supe, but it's definitely something they would all want to avoid, especially the ones under her on this list. Moving up to C tier, up first we have Marie, who has the ability to control blood. She also has super strength and super durability, as we see her survive a laser from Homelander. She does get knocked out by it though. Even though having the ability to control blood is extremely broken and overpowered, she's far from mastering the ability. Most of the time we see her use her power, she uses her own blood as lassos to grab people, and it's not very effective. Even at the end of the show, when she figures out how to control other people's blood, we only see her use this ability against people that are paying no attention to her. She has already demonstrated more creativity and promise than the other bloodbender on this list, but for now, this is as high as I can put her. Next up is Kimiko. Yes, even though she went toe-to-toe with Firecracker and lost an arm to Zoe, she's still up here because clearly the writers just had it out for her. I'm about to defend Kimiko like I'm her lawyer. For starters, in her fight against Firecracker, my client was drunk and incapacitated and therefore was not at full strength, and her decision making was off. In her fight against Zoe, she was caught by surprise. Nobody knew that Zoe had powers, and on top of this, Kimiko has a kind soul. She clearly had the strength advantage, but wasn't trying to hurt a little kid. Which brings me to my next point, which is that neither fight was complete. Had the fights dragged on any longer, my money is that Kimiko ends up on top because of her insane healing factor, which is her main power. We actually don't know if Kimiko is capable of passing away. We've seen several characters perform finishers on her, but she just keeps coming back. That coupled with her super strength are enough to put her up here on the list. The writers were just hating this season and were on a mission to prove to us that Starlight is better than Kimiko, and they did it by downplaying Kimiko. They had Kimiko lose to the Shapeshifter, then they had Starlight beat her. They had Kimiko lose to Firecracker, then they had Starlight beat her. But when you bring one character down to make another look better, it leads to inconsistencies. There is no reason Kimiko should be going toe-to-toe with anyone that can be knocked out by Butcher with a crowbar, drunk or not. We've already seen that she's strong enough to throw around characters like Stormfront and even make her bleed with her punches. Funny enough, Butcher also had a crowbar against Stormfront and couldn't do diddly squat. Little did we know, all Butcher actually had to do was apparently go for the head. But what's done is done, which leads me to the character they tried propping up this season, the most overrated, never anticipated, Starlight.
God, I'm going to enjoy this so much.
If Starlight has no haters, I must no longer be walking amongst the living. Why are there Starlighters in real life? You know how many rankings I've seen of people putting Starlight over characters like A-Train and Black Noir? What show are you guys watching? And then you got the people talking about the only reason Starlight lost to the Deep was because she didn't have her light powers. You mean the light powers that do nothing but push people back? Those light powers would have taken Starlight from getting absolutely ragdolled to winning the fight? Stop the cap. The only thing her light abilities would have done is prolong the stomping that she was taking. But anyway, Starlight also has super strength and super durability. Like I said earlier, we haven't seen anyone break her skin during a fight. She also has the ability to throw light beams out of her hands, but like mentioned, they're not very useful against other Supes. It's not a coincidence that once she lost her light abilities, she actually started winning some fights. She got a huge buff at the end of the season, but we really don't know the details of that, so for now, this is as high as she goes. Moving on to the second most overrated character in the show, Miss Newman. Listen, I get it. Hypothetically speaking, somebody with blood-bending abilities should be unstoppable, but that's clearly not the case in the boys' universe. But you couple the fact that she's a bloodbender and the fact that the boys called her invulnerable in that one episode.
We might have to accept the possibility that Newman's invulnerable.
And now you have people that actually think she's Homelander level. And that couldn't be further from the truth. For starters, the boys calling her invulnerable and not being able to stop her is just bad writing. The boys already have the formula to beat basically every Supe in the universe. It's simple. You have Frenchie make more of the nerve agent that's strong enough to put Soldier Boy to sleep. You have Starlight and Kimiko hold her back while MM puts it over her face, and she's out. The only extra step is that you have to make sure to cover her eyes. Once she's out, you stick a bomb up her gluteus maximus and blow her up, just like they did Translucent way back in season 1. But instead, we get Butcher shooting her in the head with a handgun. Even Newman was disappointed.
How is it you guys are actually getting worse at your jobs?
People also overrate Newman because of how confident she is that she could beat Supes like Starlight. But in actuality, that fight would probably be very close. People have to remember Newman was raised by Stan Edgar, a man that is able to seem powerful in the same room as Homelander despite having no powers whatsoever. I'm sure Victoria picked up a thing or two from her pops and just naturally is able to exude confidence. Hell, she even got me. She could very well actually be weaker than Starlight. The only Supe we've seen her fight is Tony. Who the hell is Tony? This is a Blue Hawk level threat at best, and Newman struggled with him. She also struggles to use her bloodbending abilities against other Supes. Tony is able to react to her ability. This is also where we learn that she needs to have her eyes open to use her powers. And later, when she's trapped in a barn surrounded by flying sheep, she doesn't even attempt to use her powers and was just as useless as Starlight, who was going through an existential crisis and couldn't even use her light abilities. Even Marie, who was still figuring out her powers, was creative enough to use the blood around her in combat. Not Newman though. I fully expect Marie to pass up Newman in season 2 of Gen V, but for now I'll keep Newman up here because of her experience. Topping off the C tier is Temp V Huey. Temp V Huey can teleport and has super strength and super durability. Even though the show writers were definitely just trying to be funny by not giving him the ability to also teleport clothes away, it actually ended up giving him an extra power as he can essentially disarm anyone just by touching them and teleporting away. Had Huey taken Temp V in the final fight against Soldier Boy instead of wasting time charging up Starlight, they might have actually beaten him without Maeve having to sacrifice herself, as Huey could have easily disarmed him of his shield, and if he decided to self-detonate, Huey could have easily teleported him away and himself to safety. But instead, we get the most useless power-up of all time. Just how far Huey can teleport is unknown, but it's definitely not unlimited, as he definitely would have teleported Butcher and Mindstorm to his apartment or something, instead of staying in the woods where Soldier Boy was easily able to find them. It's also important to note that his teleportation is not instant. There's a good second in between the time that he disappears and reappears. Where does he go? Who knows? Maybe he has his own pocket dimension like Obito, but it's definitely notable. He also didn't even attempt to teleport to Homelander when he flew away to try and bring him back to the fight, and it's pretty apparent that he just wouldn't have been fast enough anyway. Huey was also able to dodge Homelander's lasers, so dodging Starlight's abilities and Newman's shouldn't be a problem. Huey is also extremely strong, as A-Train was able to feel a punch from him and was alarmed. He then later proceeds to push Homelander off of Butcher while they have death grips on each other, like he's a big brother stopping his little brothers from fighting. I definitely cannot see anybody else on this tier doing Homelander like this. You add that to the fact that they also wouldn't be able to touch him, and Huey easily tops the C tier. He could have even been higher on this list. It's pretty safe to assume that Temp V gave Huey and Butcher comparable strength, but it's Huey.
you stay still,
Moving on to the B channel, we're starting off with the Deep, who undoubtedly got a huge buff. Man went from being unable to break through a door and getting knocked out by a fall to being able to tank hits from Starlight and throwing her around with little to no difficulty until A-Train showed up. So yeah, that's a pretty huge buff, but honestly, I'm not even mad. Had they kept his character as weak as he was in the earlier seasons, he would have just been useless, as his most OP ability is to be able to control and communicate with sea life, and nobody fights in the sea. He was also strong enough to tackle and knock down A-Train. A-Train was out of shape and couldn't use his powers, but his strength and durability should have still been somewhat comparable to his peak. The Deep also has a weak spot, which is his gills that could be exploited during a fight, but he should still be able to overwhelm everyone beneath him on this list with his newfound strength. Next up is Stormfront. 3 years ago I had her a tier above this, but since Kimiko got nerfed, Stormfront's stock also goes down. Let me explain. Kimiko was strong enough to throw Stormfront around and make her bleed with her punches, and while Kimiko's pretty strong, she's doing absolutely nothing to the other people on this tier and above. If any of the other Supes on this tier get close to her, it's over for her. But notice I said if they get close. Stormfront has one of the most useful abilities we've seen on the show, which is her electric powers. Everyone she hits with her electric powers gets stunned. Unfortunately, we've only seen her use her abilities against Supes that aren't ranked that high. She was able to completely knock out Cindy, but again, we know absolutely nothing about that woman. With that being said, I still think it's safe to say that her electric powers give her a pretty good chance against the other Supes in this tier, and definitely against the ones under her. Next up is one of the most underrated characters in the show, Andre. Honestly, all of the Gen V kids are underrated, but especially Andre. Andre has the ability to control metal. His ability is strong enough to send people flying through walls and can even stop a helicopter from crashing. He's also able to liquefy metal objects and change their structure, but we only see him do this once and it's to a coin. Andre also has super strength, as he is able to knock back Sam with a punch. For reference, Kimiko was barely able to move Sam's head with one. Andre is also insanely durable. Andre definitely took the most hits from Sam, and the man didn't bleed once. I think the reason people rate Andre so low is because the only person we ever really see him fight is Sam, but people don't take into consideration that Andre was never really trying to fight Sam. None of the Gen V kids were, but especially not Andre, who was literally on a mission to save his dead best friend's brother. This is interesting to me because people love to bring up how Homelander wasn't really trying against Queen Maeve at first, but no one talks about how the Gen V kids were never really trying against Sam and were only trying to save him, and therefore were only really reacting to him. By the time Andre actually started trying against Sam, he had already given him a bunch of free hits just trying to reason with him. Not to mention that right before the fight, he stopped a helicopter from crashing, and earlier than that, he had to stop his dad from imploding an ambulance. I think an actual fight between these two would be a lot closer than people think, but I didn't see enough from Andre to actually put him over Sam, who is next on this list. Sam has super strength and super durability. He can also jump super far like a mini version of the Hulk. He tanked a punch from Kimiko like it was nothing and is able to knock back all the Gen V kids except for Jordan, but I'll get more into him soon. Sam's biggest problem is that he's severely mentally ill. There's a very good chance that he will start talking to himself mid-fight, leaving him open to get attacked. He's currently under Kate's mind control, which allows him to lock in and stay focused, but it's not a permanent solution to the problem. And at the top of the B tier is Jordan Lee. Jordan has the power to turn into a woman. He also has super strength and super durability. When he's in his woman form, he has the ability to release energy blasts, which are strong enough to send Sam flying through a window and momentarily stun him, so they're actually pretty useful, unlike Starlight's light blasts. Jordan's also durable and strong enough to take 2 hits from Sam relatively unfazed. Later, we see him being held down while one Supe lasers him and another tries to burn his face off, and then he's just fine, like not even a single scratch. I'm telling y'all, these Gen V kids are on that new juice. They're on that Balco. Jordan might even be a tier above this, to be honest. Man is out here just casually dodging lasers. I think this is a safe spot for him right now though. We'll see how he does in season 2 of Gen V. Sticking with Gen V characters, starting off the A tier is Golden Boy. Golden Boy has the ability to engulf himself in fire. He can also use this fire as something like a projectile, kind of like a flamethrower. We also see him throw a fireball and blow a dude up, but this was in Kate's mind, so it's hard to say how accurate it truly was. He also can fly and has super strength and super durability. Unfortunately, we don't see much of Golden Boy, so it's hard to say how strong he really was. The man was only around for 1 episode. All we really have is that he's stronger than Jordan. In my opinion, he beat Jordan soundly enough to be in a separate tier. He could be higher than this, but again, we just don't have the evidence. Next up is Temp V Butcher, the 3rd most overrated character in the show. Temp v Butcher is Homelander if you make him weaker, make him less durable, take away his ability to fly, and basically all his other powers. Despite this, there are actually people out there that believe Butcher is relative to Homelander and Soldier Boy, when in reality, all Butcher and Maeve did was prove that Homelander and Soldier Boy are on a different level. It's actually pretty hard to gauge just how strong he is because the only people we see him fight are Soldier Boy and Homelander, and then Gunpowder. That's a pretty big drop off. But if we look at his fights with Homelander and Soldier Boy, he's not able to hurt them, while they're easily able to break his skin and gain the upper hand. The only thing keeping Butcher up here is his laser vision, which is actually relative to Homelander's. He's even able to cut Soldier Boy's skin with it. But it's a cut, people, relax. Next up is Black Noir. What? Black Noir over Temp v Butcher? That's crazy. Is it though? Let's look at the facts. Black Noir is quick enough to evade Homelander dashing at him and is able to block and dodge his lasers. Black Noir has super strength as he is easily able to overpower Starlight, and in his cartoon recreation of the Soldier Boy ambush, we see that his punches are strong enough to make Soldier Boy bleed. We also see a tooth fly out, but it's important to note that Noir's flashback is a little exaggerated. He also has super durability as we have seen him tank several explosions and is able to tank hits from Supes like Starlight like they're nothing. If Soldier Boy bashing his head with his extremely heavy shield wasn't enough to knock him out, nothing will. By the way, Butcher was about to get that exact same treatment from Soldier Boy until Starlight saved him, except Butcher would have probably died. Ever since Homelander one-shot Noir, people have started to downplay him. First of all, that was a sucker punch. The man couldn't even brace himself. That was not a proper 1v1 situation. Even if you ignore how unfair this situation was, just because Homelander was able to do it does not mean these other Supes would also be able to do it. The only other Supe with comparable strength to Homelander that we've seen so far is Soldier Boy. But the question is, how many Supes actually have the strength and the speed to be able to do that to Black Noir? Remember, Black Noir is able to react to Homelander that has super strength, laser vision, and super speed. Getting one shot by Homelander did show that Black Noir does not have a healing factor though. I think a lot of people, including myself, assumed that Black Noir had a healing factor comparable to Kimiko's, but clearly that is not the case. I guess Noir just has super durable bones, as even Soldier Boy could barely crack his skull despite going all out with a super heavy shield. You can even make the argument that Soldier Boy didn't even damage Noir's brain, as Broca's area, which is the area of the brain that controls speech production, is located in the left side of the brain, and Soldier Boy was hitting Noir in the right side of the head. The right side of the brain controls things like creativity and emotions, two things that Black Noir shows a lot of. Also, when it comes to language, the right side of the brain is especially important when it comes to interpreting context, staying on topic, and organizing thoughts, things that Noir has shown no problems in doing, as he was still Vought's go-to spy. It is very possible that his inability to speak came from the psychological trauma of never being able to be a big-time actor, which was his dream because of how badly he was disfigured. Next up is Queen Maeve. Technically, she doesn't have her powers anymore, but this is prime Maeve we're talking about here. Maeve has super strength and super durability. She can also run very fast and jump very far. She's strong enough to make Homelander bleed, which is more than you can say about Butcher. She's also pretty skilled, as she was piecing Homelander up and was holding her own even after Homelander started trying. All that being said though, the more you watch the fight, the more you realize that Homelander was never really in any danger. Maeve definitely gets the style points. She looked more agile, she was landing better combos, but at the end of the day, who would you rather be? The person with no eye and cuts all over their face? Or the person with just a bloody ear? Side note, the choreography for Homelander poking Maeve's eye was absolutely terrible. Move your head, Maeve. It's like she was guiding his hand to her eye. But yeah, Homelander was barely injured. He was even ready to continue fighting Butcher, so he still had a lot left in the tank. Topping off the A tier is A-Train. A-Train has super speed, super strength, and super durability, and now that he has a new heart and is no longer abusing Compound V, he is extremely dangerous, as most of his weaknesses were a direct result of abusing Compound V, as it was making his bones and heart significantly weaker.
You heard the doc. Your heart is getting bigger, balls are getting smaller, your bone density's for shit.
The show would have honestly been over in season 1 if he didn't have the most convenient heart attacks. But even while being on the constant verge of having a heart attack, he's able to no-diff Supes like Starlight and Kimiko and completely demolish Blue Hawk. Even when he's out of shape and can't use his powers, he's still strong enough to hurt Supes like the Deep with his punches. People doubt A-Train's durability because Kimiko was able to break his leg with a metal pipe, but remember, his bones were significantly weakened by the use of Compound V. Once he stopped abusing Compound V, we see him take a tackle from the deep, and later we see him take a punch from Temp V Huey, and he was just confused as to why he was able to feel it. Remember, this is the same deep that can easily overpower Supes like Starlight, and this is the same Huey that can push Homelander off of Butcher while they have death grips on each other with relative ease. A-Train also has some of the most impressive strength feats in the entire show. He's able to backhand Kimiko through a concrete wall, and we see him training by pulling a whole train. People try to downplay this feat by saying he only had the strength to do this because he was amped on Compound V, but if you listen to his brother in the scene, he was only surprised about how quickly his leg was able to heal. He didn't say anything about the amount of weight that he was pulling, showing that this is standard training for A-Train and is most likely on the low end considering he still had a brace on his leg. People also try to downplay A-Train's speed, and honestly I can't even be mad because the show writers clearly weren't paying too much attention to how fast they wanted to make him. In his race against Shockwave, A-Train ran a little bit faster than the speed of sound, and this was supposed to be his top end speed thanks to the help of Compound V, except if you watch the show, A-Train is clearly way faster than the speed of sound, even without the use of Compound V. A-Train is shown several times throughout the show to be faster than people can see. The only way that would be possible is to be faster than light. Let me explain. The way people are able to see things is by the light that is reflecting off of those things. Therefore, in order for A-Train to be invisible to the human eye, he would have to be near that speed. I don't know the exact calculations, but he would definitely need to be significantly faster than the speed that they showed him run in that race. What's funny is that just before the race, they had A-Train leave the stadium, inject himself with Compound V, return to the exact same spot without anyone in the stadium noticing. Even Butcher, who was in the stadium watching him with binoculars, didn't notice it. A feat that would easily require speeds exceedingly above the speed of sound just for him to barely break the sound barrier in the race. Juicing to get slower is absolutely diabolical. Get it together, showrunners. Anyways, regardless if A-Train is the speed of light or the speed of sound, it's clear that he's supposed to be the fastest in the show. The only other person that would even be close is Homelander. And it seems like the show writers went out of their way in season 4 to show us that A-Train is just on a different level when it comes to speed, as they had A-Train find Huey and get him to safety as he was literally being chased by Homelander without Homelander even noticing. There really is no reason anybody should be able to touch him, especially the people below him on this list. He also has the strength to damage anyone. However, we haven't actually seen him fight Homelander or Soldier Boy, so until that happens, I can't put him on that tier. I'm 99% sure he'd do better than Queen Maeve though. And now to the S tier, and yes, that's Soldier Boy over Homelander. A lot of people think Homelander is stronger than Soldier Boy because he survived getting jumped by him, Butcher, and Huey, but what people forget is that just before the fight, Soldier Boy blacked out and used a lot of his power on a radiation blast, so clearly he was not at 100%. And despite not being at 100%, he still gave Homelander PTSD, had that man tweaking out mid-speech. He wasn't seeing visions of Butcher. That just goes to show you that Soldier Boy's punches were just hitting different. In the final fight, Soldier Boy completely destroyed Butcher, made it very clear that they are not comparable. Sure, Homelander's lasers could theoretically cut his skin, but we're talking about a cut here. Meanwhile, one blast from Soldier Boy would completely depower Homelander and anybody else on this list. For that reason alone, unless we see somebody that is significantly stronger than him, he would come out on top more likely than not, as that is literally the ultimate trump card. Before I end the video, if you are wondering about Supes like Mindstorm, Kate, and even Rufus, I decided to leave them off the list because it's literally 50-50 with them. They either get you with their powers or they don't. We see this with Rufus. One time he's able to brainwash Andre, the next time Andre is able to completely destroy him. They're impossible to rank. I will rank them amongst themselves though. I think Mindstorm is the strongest as he is able to take a tackle from Soldier Boy, and in Noir's flashback we see him punch and draw blood from Soldier Boy. Next, I would put Rufus as he was actually able to mind control Kate herself, and he's also pretty durable as we saw him get blasted through a wall and crack another and was relatively uninjured. He also got his pee-pee blown off by Marie, and the next time we see him he's completely unfazed, so it's safe to assume he also has regenerative abilities. Then I got Kate, who was also able to mind control Rufus, but I think what separates Rufus and Mindstorm from Kate is the fact that they don't have to physically touch people with their hands to mind control them. But yeah, that's it. Do you guys agree with my list? Let me know what you guys would change in the comment section below.